weekend, every Saturday at noon, we gather to promote the peace movement. And some days we focus on a particular issue. In this day, we're focusing on Julian Assange. And by the time the speakers are done, you'll know why we're focusing on Julian Assange. So we're going to educate you today. Then we're going to give you the opportunity to make a video here. We're going to make an opportunity to make a video at home if you'd like. And we'll give an opportunity to call your congressman. First, I'd like to thank Chris for the Pink Floyd music. Yeah, Chris, excellent. And he's doing Pink Floyd not just because it's great music, but because Pink Floyd supports Julian Assange. So, without any further ado, let us start the program. And the leader in Milwaukee of the Julian Assange defense is Batiza. So Ann, would you, but before we start, we want to make sure that we dedicate this land to the indigenous people. George Martin.
Hello, family. It's important when we have events that we recognize the land that we are on. And that's called a land acknowledgement ceremony. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is Milwaukee. Milwaukee is known as the gathering place by the waters, the good earth, or the good land, or simply gathering place. Native American tribes such as the Potawatomi, Ojibwe, Ottawa, Fox, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Sauk, and Oneida have called Milwaukee their home at some point for centuries. We sadly mourn the European colonization of native lands and the resulting suffering, deaths, and displacement of Native Americans. We seek atonement for their loss and restoration for their rights. Native Americans honor the sacredness of our Mother Earth and live in harmony with all forms of life. They have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We thank them for their strength and resilience, for ability to adapt in protecting this land. And we aspire to uphold our responsibilities according to their example in maintaining an ecologically sustainable earth. Land acknowledgements talk about the past and the present and the future. Please join me in this pledge. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to our earth, to the community of life upon it, and to the spirit family by which we live. One planet, one world, with peace and climate justice for all. I pledge allegiance to our earth. Oh, I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry. But that pledge, I thank you so much.
Thank you, George.
Yeah. On with the program. And please, in programs that you're involved in, this kind of statement should be made. I will share it with you. I researched this with 10 chiefs and other factors, okay? So let's do this continually. Thank you. Jim.
Thanks, Jerry, for the chiming in here with the backup music. All right, Ann Batiza, the leader of the Assange Defense Cmte in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin. Ann, where are you? Come on up and tell us what this is all about.
Well, thank you very much, Jim and George, and also for last night. George did a wonderful job emceeing, and again, Chris, thank you so much for your playing. He's awesome. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. This is really a crucial time. Next week will be the U.S. appeal of the UK's no extradition verdict that was handed down on January 4th. There was a lengthy trial in the fall, an extradition trial. But in fact, Julian has been in Belmarsh prison, largely under solitary confinement, for almost 3 years now. The United States, in this prosecution, is criminalizing journalism. And I want to talk today a little bit about the role of the media in this. So many of you maybe have read the Yahoo News report that revealed that even back as far as the Obama administration, there were plans to let's see here. There were plans to redefine certain journalists who were publishing things that the government did not like as information brokers, and it gave them certain powers. They defined for themselves certain powers, hacking into their equipment, all of the things that are protected by the First Amendment and the free press, but they thought, well, if we just redefine, then we can do this. When the Trump administration came in, Pompeo basically said, let's take the gloves off. And from the Yahoo article, I want to read just a portion of what now was allowed by the Trump administration. It said, these included paralyzing this is a quote, its WikiLeaks digital infrastructure, disrupting its communications, provoking internal disputes within the organization by planting damaging information, and stealing WikiLeaks members' electronic devices, according to 3 former officials. This is in the Yahoo News article that came out September 26. Asked whether the CIA had broken into WikiLeaks associates' homes and stolen or wiped their hard drives, a former intelligence official declined to go into detail, but said that, quote, some actions were taken, unquote. The Yahoo News article also revealed that a company, UC Global, that had originally been hired to do security for the Ecuadorian embassy where Julian was, then started working for the CIA, feeding them not only video but audio of Julian's conversations with his lawyers, with his doctors, all privileged conversation. Again, direct violation of First Amendment rights. Interestingly, in this Yahoo article, it also said that the government could not find evidence that there was any connection between WikiLeaks and Russia. That's in this Yahoo article. What have we been hearing for, 3 years? And so they used this other extra legal means. They used some kind of legal justification in their minds to do all this. But what I want to point out is that the spying, I'm sorry, and also Yahoo showed that there were plans, at least considered, to kidnap, render, and assassinate Julian Assange, including they got the okay from the UK government to have a shootout, if necessary, in the streets of London, and to shoot out the tires of a plane if it were taking off with Julian aboard. These are just unbelievable. However, what I want to point out to you is that for many of us, this idea that there were plans that UC Global was spying and that there were plans to kidnap and assassinate Julian were not new. I have in my hand, that's why I have so many things here in my hand, El País. It's an article for El País. The U.S. trail of the man whose security firm spied on Julian Assange. The date of this is November 8, 2019. And inside here, they refer to an earlier article they wrote And they say, UC Global spied on Assange for the CIA as shown by testimony and documents disclosed by this newspaper. There's actually a trial going on in Spain for the head of UC Global, whom they accuse of being a criminal for this spying. So Spain, El País, reported on this. But also, I don't know how many of you follow the Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate at the Gray Zone. So I printed out just some of their UC Global file. This is the Gray Zone. So the earliest one is from May 14th, 2020, and the title is The American Friends, New Court Files Expose Sheldon Adelson Security Team and U.S. Spy Operation Against Julian Assange. Then there are at least 5-6 other articles here. Consortium News covered the CIA spying on Julian Assange. Matt Taibbi on Substack. Glenn Greenwald on Substack. Aaron Mate, part of Gray Zone. So for those of us who have been following these independent journalists, we already knew this. But not a peep out of the New York Times, the Washington Post, and in fact, this particular Yahoo News, it got picked up by CBS, CNN, and then it's kind of disappeared. So, we've heard about disinformation being spread in the news, in particular on the internet. Well, you know, I follow all of these people. I subscribe to them, and I also follow what they post on Twitter with links to their articles. But I want you to understand the disinformation when it comes to Julian Assange, and frankly when it comes to war, is coming from the legacy press and their colleagues, the heads of Google, Facebook, Twitter less so, but Google and Facebook. And I hope people can avoid the rush to censorship that's now coming out of a very authoritarian strain within the Democratic Party, glorifying CIA and FBI people who have planted so many lies in our media and to us. It's hard to keep track. We have to resist the censorship, and if Julian Assange is prosecuted, brought to the United States to face 175 years in a maximum security prison, they had said they would use special administrative measures, which basically keep him away from human contact. We will never have national security journalism in this country. And if we don't have journalism and we don't have a way to find out the truth about what the government is doing in our names with our tax dollars, we don't have a democracy. Thank you.
That's it. That's right. Yeah. And actually go in with the program, which is a song right now.
I think, am I supposed to
Oh,
show
you're supposed
this?
to make a
Yeah.
video?
Yeah, so in this handout, I hope you all get it. On the back are directions for making a video. Why should I care about Julian Assange? And I'm going to make one here if somebody records it. Of course, thank you, Tom. Tom is just amazing. It should be 20 to 40 seconds. The camera should be horizontal. Notice Tom is modeling that. And you can start out by saying, I should care about Julian Assange because. AssangeDefense.org. There is an email address, videocontact@AssangeDefense.org. You can email them your video. They're going to post them. They're going to put a graphic at the beginning. They're going to perhaps make a mashup. But people are doing this all across the country. So I'm going to model Oh, and it says that you might end at the end with free Assange, or that's why we think we urge President Biden to free Assange, or we provide the phone number of the Capitol. Please call Tammy Baldwin, call Gwen Moore, call Mark Pocan, call Ron Johnson. The Capitol number is 202-224-3121. That's 202, it's on here, 202-224-3121. Okay, I'm going to do this. So, why should I care about Julian Assange? I should care about Julian Assange because I care about democracy, my democracy here in the United States for my children and my grandchildren. Thomas Jefferson, when asked if he preferred government or newspapers, he opted for newspapers. Democracy only works if we know what our government is doing in our name. And that's why I urge President Biden, please free Julian Assange, preserve press freedom in the United States. It's essential. And everyone call your congressperson, use the Capitol switchboard, 202-224-3121. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can do that yourselves at home, and you can make a sign, or you can put on here free press, whatever you want, and or wear your shirt. Okay.
And could you just announce we're putting these videos on the Peace Action
okay.
channel?
I guess why don't you announce?
Okay, there's a Peace Action Wisconsin YouTube channel, and I'm not sure if I get that entirely correct, but just search for Peace Action Wisconsin. All these videos should be going there. Thank you.
Hey, Jim. Jim? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce a song interlude by Chris Borg. He's going to sing a song from Roger Waters, who is a huge supporter of Julian Assange, who used to show the Collateral Murder video at his concerts. Chris?
Yeah, sure. Before I do that, I'm going to do my 20 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this is more important than my singing. 20 seconds. Why I should care about Julian Assange. The First Amendment is one of the most important things in a democracy, the freedom of the press. And if we allow our freedoms to slowly disintegrate without standing up, we will not have any freedoms. So the First Amendment is vital for democracy. George Washington, the founder of our country, said, freedom of the press, without it, it's like leading sheep to slaughter. So our country was founded on the principles of the freedom of the press. And Julian Assange, being a publisher, publishing the truth and being persecuted for that is 100% against our Constitution. And we all need to stand up and take notice, because our freedoms are being slowly taken away from us as citizens of the United States. So that's why I care about Julian Assange, because I care about our country.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Chris, for those great videos. And everybody, please make your own video. Please call the senator and congressman. There's a great summary of what this issue is all about in Newsweek. And Julie Enslow is going to have people read that short essay from these very prominent people about what this issue is all about. Julie.
Thanks, Jim. So if the people I asked to read would please gather around here so we don't waste time in between paragraphs. So there was this article back in towards the end of September in Newsweek, and it was an opinion column by Daniel Ellsberg, Alice Walker and Noam Chomsky, all three of which are on the Assange Defense Committee. I believe they're co-chairs of it nationally. And the title of it is, Why is Biden prosecuting Assange for telling the truth about Afghanistan? It begins, in the midst of a wrenching reassessment of our endless wars, we cannot ignore the U.S. government's persecution of those who revealed the brutality of the Afghan war and the lies on which it was founded. The Biden administration is stubbornly pursuing the extradition of Julian Assange, who exposed the corrupt motives and doomed policies behind the war on terror. This unprecedented political prosecution poses a grave threat to truth-telling and freedom of the press. Commentators across the media have drawn parallels between the U.S. withdrawal from Kabul and the fall of Saigon back in 1975. 4 years before the exit from Vietnam, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and 17 other newspapers published the Pentagon Papers, a classified archive showing that U.S. intervention in Vietnam had been wrong from the start and was prolonged for decades through deliberate deception.
One of us, Daniel Ellsberg, released those files 50 years after his case was dismissed due to governmental Thank you. One of us, Daniel Ellsberg, released those files 50 years after his case was dismissed due to criminal misconduct by the government. The American bombing and occupation of Vietnam is viewed near unanimously as an ill-fated policy whose pursuit was morally wrong. The parallels between that case and the work of Assange and his source, U.S. Army whistleblower Chelsea Manning, are striking. Thanks in part to their revelations a decade ago, Americans are increasingly seeing our occupation and bombing of Afghanistan in a similar light to our Vietnam policy.
Do you want me to start out saying why I should support? No. Okay, I'll just. When Assange published hundreds of thousands of classified military and diplomatic documents in 2010, the public was given an unprecedented window into the lack of justification and the futility of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. The truth was hidden by a generation of governmental lies. Assange's efforts helped show the American public what their government was doing in their name. Assange summed up his anti-war ethos at a 2011 rally in London. The goal is justice. The method is transparency, he said. If wars can be started by laws, peace can be started by truth.
Yeah, that's right. So true.
Chelsea Manning told the judge in her court-martial, "I wanted the American public to know that not everyone in Iraq and Afghanistan were targets that needed to be neutralized, but rather people who were struggling to live." Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange acted on their belief that the public deserved to see the reality of these wars and the horrors of how they were conducted.
Two of us, Ellsberg and Noam Chomsky, testified for Assange at his extradition hearing last year. In Ellsberg's words then, the WikiLeaks publications that Assange is being charged for are amongst the most important truthful revelations of hidden criminal state behavior that have been made public in U.S. history. The American public needed urgently to know what was being done routinely in their name, and there was no other way for them to learn it than by unauthorized disclosure.
When the files were first published, with Joe Biden as vice president, the Obama administration impaneled a grand jury to investigate. In 2013, it declined to prosecute due to what it called the New York Times problem, the dilemma of indicting Assange for the very same kind of investigative journalism that mainstream media engages frequently, though not as much as they should. But in May 2019, viewing the press as the enemy of the people, the Trump Justice Department indicted Assange under the much-abused Espionage Act. No media outlet or journalist has ever been successfully prosecuted under the Espionage Act for publishing truthful information in the public interest, which is protected by the First Amendment. These charges send a message to reporters around the world. Assange is an Australian citizen, not an American. That U.S. governments will decide what can and cannot be published about its misdeeds, even beyond its borders.
Shame on the U.S. Shame on the U.S. Right on.
Assange warned the public that the goal in Afghanistan is to have an endless war, not a successful war. Last month, as troops were beginning to pull out of Afghanistan, video of these comments went viral, with more than 3 million views in a week. Assange's warning in 2011 is conventional wisdom in 2021. So why isn't he a free man? In January, a British judge denied the U.S. extradition request on grounds that sending Assange to the U.S. prison system would put him at risk of suicide. In Donald Trump's final days in office, the U.S. government appealed that decision.
Biden's Justice Department, which has proclaimed a renewed commitment to press So Biden's Justice Department has proclaimed a renewed commitment to press freedom, could end these proceedings at any moment. Biden now owns the prosecution of Julian Assange by actively pursuing Trump's appeal. Biden stuck to his word and finally ended the war in Afghanistan, but he cannot close this chapter in U.S. history with the man who had told the truth about that war still in prison.
That's right.
Okay, and those again are the words of Daniel Ellsberg, Alice Walker, and Noam Chomsky, co-chairs of the Assange Defense Cmte.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent, thank you. And that's in the Newsweek article. We have copies for you if you need it. You can find it on Newsweek. Now we have a couple short comments from Ramon Valdez. Is he here? Ramon, come on up. Thank you.
Sure. I'm Ramon Valdez. I'm with the National Lawyers Guild on the steering committee.
A little closer to the mic.
Okay, Ramon Valdez. I'm an attorney with the National Lawyers Guild. I also have my own practice, Brown Buffalo Law. I predominantly practice U.S. criminal defense work. I was asked to come and speak here, and I feel like I'm speaking to the choir, and some of the things I actually prepared have been touched upon, but I was told 3 minutes, and I will probably go way under that. Powerful people, entities, corporations, governments do not give up power easily. And so what we see happening to Julian Assange is nothing new. This has been going on for decades, for hundreds of years. These powerful entities, governments, corporations, resort to legal, extra-legal, and illegal means to maintain that power. Let us not forget that 45 years ago, on September 21st, 1976, Orlando Letelier and Ronnie Moffat were killed by a car bomb in Washington, D.C. by supporters of dictator Augusto Pinochet. And very recently, Khashoggi was killed by supporters of the Saudi government. These were people reporting on government abuses in our country, in their countries. But do you think that maybe our government had some tacit approval of these actions? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe, right? So exposing government and corporate corruption and malfeasance is dangerous. What we're doing here is dangerous. Let's not forget that. We now know, and Ann already talked about this, that our own government considered kidnapping and assassinating Julian Assange. I mean, just think about that, right? We like to think that this is the land of the home, the brave. I don't think that's very brave. It used to be that mainstream journalists did I'm going to say maybe fairly decent job of reporting these abuses. And you can think of Watergate, the war in Vietnam. Ann talked about that too. But recently the media has been taken over by major corporations. And now we're fed news that's sponsored and promoted by the likes of the Disney Corporation, General Electric. And you think of Judith Miller being fed news by the CIA, and rather than investigating and maybe determining if it was true or not, just fed that to us. And that came over mainstream media. I mean, just think about that, right? So this news that we now have today is not meant to inform us of government and corporate abuses, but rather to maintain power. And his name's already been mentioned today, what Noam Chomsky calls manufacturing consent. That's what this is about. They don't want people to be critically thinking, examining their governments to determine what is proper and improperly being done in our name with our tax dollars, right? They don't want to have our schools teach kids how to think critically. They want to have a compliant consumer class, a compliant working class. So these are the lengths to which governments will go to silence their critics if we don't put them in check. It is time to put our government in check. That's right. It is time to expose the corruption that is inherent in all of the dark money that floods our politics. It's even in the Supreme Court now. We used to like to think that the Supreme Court was above politics. That was maybe kind of foolish, right? You look at it now and you just kind of go, oh, wait a minute. There are people's lives in Texas right now that are being affected by the unconstitutional enforcement of a law that probably 90% of the country believes is unconstitutional, but yet the Supreme Court is allowing it to stand in place. I'm reminded of a couple quotes from Eugene Debs, who died just a few days ago, October 20th, 1926, 95 years ago. He kind of took up the mantle of what we're talking about here today. He was persecuted and prosecuted for his beliefs and stands against the U.S. government. This is one of his quotes. I am opposing a social order in which it is possible for one man who does absolutely nothing that is useful to amass a fortune of hundreds of millions of dollars, my own parentheses here, billions, and maybe even going to have our first trillionaire now, while millions of men and women work all the days of their lives, secure barely enough for a wretched existence. That's what we're living with right now. And if you think about this, workers maybe right now have a leg up on things because of this pandemic. I've been doing a lot of work on Zoom. I don't want to go back into the courthouses. I don't want to go back to being in person, where 50% of the cops and sheriff's deputies aren't vaccinated, being exposed to a deadly virus. Aren't they there to serve and protect? Apparently not. Apparently not. Here's another quote from Eugene. While there is a lower class, I am in it. While there is a criminal element, I am of it. And while there is a soul in prison, I am not free. I'm getting a time signal. Wow. And guess what? I got one more page. It is time to equitably redistribute the wealth that is created by the workers of this country. And why are we still having the same battles that were going on at the turn of the 1900s? Entrenched power does not cede that power easily. And in case you haven't heard, people are fed up with government prying. We're fed up with government spying. We're fed up with government lying.
That's right.
That's right.
That is right. Yeah.
It's time to repeal the Patriot Act. It is time to free Julian Assange. Thank you.
Thank you.
Free Julian Assange!
Thank you.
Free Julian Assange.
Well done. Ramon, we're glad to have you here in person today. And the National Lawyers Guild, never being afraid to speak truth to power, even if it's risky. Thank you very much. All right. Mark Foreman, another person from never.
Jim.
Oh. Oh, you're here. Okay. Oh, George. Yes.
Sorry, Mark. No. Glad you got a seat. Hello, family. You know, I'm going to talk about the connection of the George Floyd case and Julian Assange's case, and we can scratch our heads. But please listen. The Minneapolis Police Department's initial, inaccurate, and misleading description of George Floyd's death might have become the official account had it not been for a video taken by a teenage bystander. That initial news release by the Minneapolis Police Department read, "Man dies after medical incident during police interaction." It said Mr. Floyd, who was not even identified by name in the news release, physically resisted officers on the scene who had ordered him out of his vehicle. Officers were able to get the suspect into handcuffs and noted he appeared to be suffering medical distress, the release said. Many others have pointed out that without the video, George Floyd might yet be another largely unnoticed of the thousands of victims of police violence. Not for the reasons sustained, and also the reasons sustained through the protests throughout the U.S. and around the world, building the largest social movement in history. Much credit is due to the citizen cell phone video documentation and those other citizens that captured the many other instances of injustice and police misconduct. We and the world saw George Floyd dying in front of our eyes for a lengthy 8 minutes and 46 seconds. We heard George Floyd narrate his own death, declaring, "I can't breathe," and calling out for his mother. For the first time, we saw the faces of both the victim and the murderer in the same frame. We knew then the offending officer's name, Derek Chauvin. We all saw the look of impunity on Chauvin's face, staring into the camera with his hands in his pockets, knowing that he was killing Floyd. And as we look at the Iraq War and WikiLeaks, very similarly, in the video Collateral Murder, you see a dozen Iraqis and two journalists mowed down, killed before your own eyes, without provocation, by U.S. helicopters. You hear the banter and the lies while you see the truth. The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture stated, if the U.S. prosecutors did the same as they did with WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. They did the same with George Floyd case. It would mean that the police officers go free. They're not even being investigated, nor tried or convicted. They're not even being arrested and investigated, while the person who filmed this and put it on the internet would be put in solitary confinement for the rest of her life. Repeat after me. Whistleblowers.
Whistleblowers.
Truth and justice.
Truth and justice.
Free Julian Assange.
Free Julian Assange.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. That was great. Yeah. Woo, woo.
Thank you, George and Julie. Appreciate it. I know you have to go. You got another commitment, so thank you very much. All right. Now, sorry about the order here. Mark Foreman, always speaking truth to power, co-founder of Milwaukee Homeless Veterans Initiative and member of Veterans for Peace. All right, Mark.
Thanks, Jim. Why should I be concerned about what's going on with Julian Assange? I was in the Vietnam War in 1968. I got there 2 weeks after My Lai happened. In the 5 weeks that I spent there before I was wounded, I saw atrocities that really messed with my emotional being, with my moral being, with my physical being, and my spiritual being. It's taking a lifetime for me to put my world together. So that's why Julian Assange means so much to me, because he understood that the truth of the barbaric behavior of the United States needs to be exposed. We keep paying for these insane wars, and it's robbing us, like Eisenhower told us, it's robbing us every day from being able to take care of our kids and ourselves. We cannot live in fear any longer. We need to progressively unite and create an organization that's more powerful than the warlords.
That's right.
I'll leave it at that. I just really appreciate Julian Assange as being a super patriot and superhero to try and save our nation from going to hell. And so anyway, I love you all, and thanks for being here.
Right on.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah.
We love you too, Mark, and you are a tremendous voice for uniting the veterans and the peace activists in this community. So now we have Art Heizer, also a member of the National Lawyers Guild. Art, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Sure. Thank you, Jim, and thanks to all the organizers of this important event. So I'm speaking as president of the Milwaukee Turners, which is, we think, the oldest civic organization in the city. We have added about 400 new members in the last year, so we're one of the fastest growing, despite the fact we've been around for 170 years. And we've had 4 guiding principles that are relevant here today to this case. Liberty against all oppression, tolerance against all fanaticism, reason against all superstition, and justice against all exploitation. So with reference to the Newsweek article that I hope all of you will use and carry, I'll just refer to a couple of these principles. Liberty. As the authors said, Noam Chomsky, Alice Walker, and Daniel Ellsberg, no media outlet or journalist has ever been successfully prosecuted under the Espionage Act for publishing truthful information in the public interest, which is protected by the First Amendment. Obviously, this is a threat to our liberty to continue this. Reason. Reason obviously must be based on fact, truth. And as they also said, that what Assange and WikiLeaks released are amongst the most important truthful revelations of hidden criminal state behavior that has ever been made public in U.S. history.
Yes, that's right.
And finally, justice. Again, quoting from the Newsweek article, Assange summed up his anti-war ethos at a rally in 2011 in London. Quote from him, "The goal is justice. The method is transparency."
That's right.
He said, "If wars can be started by lies, peace can be started by truth." Thank you very much.
That is good. Thank you, Art. Appreciate it, Art. Is anybody prepared? We're going to have another song from Chris. As we have the song, a couple people should prepare to make there's 30-second statement that can be recorded if you want to do that. So, Chris, you want to grace us with another song?
I chose this song because this is the song that Roger Waters, who always speaks truth to power. Roger Waters is a big supporter of Julian Assange. So Roger's Army is an organization I founded to bring Roger's music to humanitarian causes. And Julian Assange is one of our main causes. So we will support Julian and Stephen Donziger and Free Palestine. So these are the causes Roger's Army is supporting as best we can. But this is a song for Julian.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks for Pink Floyd for working for the Julian Assange cause. So, is anybody willing to make a 30-second statement on video? You are? 30 seconds? All right. Eugene, come on up. Eugene will make a statement. All right.
I grew up during the Second World War. I went to school in New York City. We learned what the First Amendment was. Never heard about the Second Amendment. To me, the First Amendment is freedom of speech, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Thank you.
Yes, that's right.
All right, thank you.
That's right. First Amendment.
All right, First Amendment. Oh, anybody else would like to make a 30-second comment? No? I tell you, so the people that are left here, I want to make it clear that when senators and Congress people get a phone call, it makes a difference. If we had everybody that was here today make a phone call to their congressperson and to the senator, they would notice. They would notice, and it would make a difference. So we want to make it clear, people watching this video, call the number. It's the switchboard number, capital switchboard number, 202-224-3121. Ask for your member of Congress, ask for your senator, tell them that we need freedom of the press, tell them we need to shine light on the evil of war, and that's why we have to free Julian Assange, because he's being prosecuted for shining light on the evil of war. Thank you.
All right.
All right, so I think what we're going to do then is wrap it up. And Chris, if you want to grace us with one more song as we start to gather things. I want to thank everybody for coming. Being out here with all this traffic and all this traffic, seeing these signs, it raises the consciousness. We're speaking truth to power. We're speaking truth to people who may not know what's going on because the press doesn't cover it. So we are making a difference. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Take us out? Oh, okay.
Ann, you might want to talk to that woman with a red as a backup on the video. She did a lot of video. Yeah. We just never know.
Thank you, Eric.
Well, okay, I'm gonna finish up here. No backing, so it's just gonna be me. This is not a Roger song. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. If you care about America, care about your rights, you care about a free press, if you care about ever having a free press, free Julian Assange.